Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's 2:02 p.m. We intend to start by 2 so as not to waste much of our time. So you're all welcome. Thank you for joining. So my name is Funmilayo Akinremi, and as the program director of the Oye Ibidapo Foundation for Educational Transformation, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's crucial discussion. Today, September 19, 2025, marks a pivotal moment in our AI webinar series. We are here to tackle a topic that is both fascinating and fundamental to our digital future. That is the double-edged sword, navigating the risks and ethical dilemmas of AI. In an era where AI's power grows daily, understanding its complexity from data privacy and inherent biases to its ethical impact on our daily life is no longer optional. It's essential for every student, graduate, and young professional navigating this tech-driven world. We've assembled an exceptional panel of experts to guide us through this critical area. We have Ms. Faith Obafemi, a distinguished lawyer and cybersecurity professional, who will illuminate how we can effectively protect our data in an AI world. Then we have Mr. Solomon Ejishakin, an esteemed educational leader and director at Edway Educational Services, who will take us beyond the hype, navigating the bias and ethics of AI in a connected world. We encourage you to participate actively in the chat for your thoughts, and please hold your specific questions for our dedicated question and answer session later in the program. So our goal today is for you all to be well informed of AI's risks and ethical dilemmas, so you can apply this knowledge in your everyday use of AI and hopefully inspire you to seek out new opportunities in the tech world. Thank you for joining us today for what promises to be an incredibly insightful and thought-provoking session. So let's start. But before we go on, we had this webinar last month, that's in the month of August, and some of you were with us. For those that are just joining us for the first time, I would like to talk briefly about the Oye Ibidapo-Obe Foundation for you to get to know us and what we do. So, the Oye Ibidapo-Obe Foundation for Educational Transformation is a non-profit organization founded by late emeritus Professor Oye Ibidapo-Obe. The foundation is dedicated to improving the lives of the less privileged through access to quality education and healthcare. Founded in honor of a legacy rooted in service, excellence, and compassion, our mission is to build stronger communities by addressing the foundational needs of learning and well-being. Through our programs, we support vulnerable children with school supplies, tuition assistance, and mentorship, while also organizing medical outreaches and health education campaigns in undeserved communities. Our approach is simple: identify real needs, mobilize support, and deliver sustainable impact one life at a time. We work hand in hand with volunteers, professionals, partners, and donors to bring hope and opportunity to those who need it most. Although relatively young, the foundation has recorded some remarkable achievements towards attaining its objectives. At every level of education, there are beneficiaries of the foundation scholarship program. The foundation has several students under its sponsorship in primary, secondary schools, and university across Nigeria and overseas. Some of the beneficiaries made first class in their first degree and are currently pursuing education at the master's and doctoral level. At the Oye Ibidapo-Obe Foundation for Educational Transformation, we are not just offering aid, we are building futures. So join us as we create lasting change and give every human being the chance to thrive. You can visit our website www.oyebidapo-obefoundation.org to learn more about us. And you can also follow us on our social media handle, Oye Ibidapo-Obe Foundation. Together, we can do more. So thank you very much. So now let's go into today's activity. Like I've said earlier, we have two of our speakers available. So I need to confirm if Miss Faith Obafemi is on the call now. Because the last time I checked, oh, okay, she's here. Thank you, ma'am. You're welcome. So from our flyers, we had three speakers, but unfortunately, Mr. Jason will not be able to join us today. He was supposed to talk about the business aspects using AI in real estate. But we promise that in our subsequent webinar, we'll have him on board to join us. So we are so sorry, we won't be able to take him for today. But we have Miss Faith and Mr. Solomon Dishakin for today's webinar. So to go deep into the discussion, I will be inviting Ms. Faith Obafemi, an international lawyer who specializes in privacy, accessibility, and cybersecurity. So permit me to read her profile briefly before she starts her discussion. So Faith brings over 9 years of combined experience in this domain. As the world's first cyber accessibility officer at FISET, Faith brings a diverse skill set to help protect the 1 billion people with disabilities worldwide. Her efforts have led to winning a UNESCO grant during the 2024 African Women in Tech and AI program held at University Mohammed VI Polytechnic, Morocco, UMC Space. The grant will help build an accessibility scanner for the cybersecurity industry. Faith previously worked at Queen's University Belfast in the School of Electrical, Electronics and Computer Science as a privacy policy technician with a UK government-funded project. During her time there, she explored the implementation of Article 40 of the Digital Service Act on data access and conducted a technical analysis of privacy enhancing technologies for facilitating data access. She has spoken at events such as UK Cyber Week 2025 and XCon, the biggest accessibility conference in the world. So Ms. Faith, you're welcome and you have the floor. Thank you for accepting our invitation to be part of our webinar for this month.
Thank you for the invitation. I hope I'm audible. You can hear me clearly. Okay, awesome. Let me just share my screen. Oops. It seems I can't share my screen.
You can go ahead and share now. I've made you a
Okay,
poll.
I would just share the slides in the chat. Maybe you can present it for me.
Okay. Though you're a co-host now, so you can still get it. Okay.
Okay, I sent it, so you could help me present it.
Just a minute. Can you see my screen? Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, slideshow. You can just use slideshow.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Alright.
No, it's beside that share on the
I've seen it.
right hand side. Good, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Faith, and today I will be talking about how to protect your data in an AI world. I know I've been given 30 minutes, and that, of course, won't be enough to cover everything comprehensively. So, this just consider this a kind of introduction to how to go out about protecting your data in an AI world. Of course, as I go on, if you have questions that come to mind, just drop them in the chat and I will take a look once I'm done. Also, another thing to note is I'm looking at this topic from the point of view of users and not organizations because most AI laws categorize those who have anything to do with artificial intelligence into provider, which will be those who design the AI tools and products that most of us use. And then the other main category is deployers, which are basically users, those who actually use these AI products and tools. And it could be professional use or personal use. So anyway, I wanted to just mention that I'm discussing this based on the point of view of individual users. Okay, before we proceed, I just wanted to ask a question. I will check the chat to see responses. How many of us have ever used any AI products? Don't worry, I will let you know when to move to the next slide. So you can go back to the first slide. You can just let me know in the chat if you've ever used an AI product. I just want some engagement so it doesn't look like I'm talking to myself. Awesome. Great. And then for those who have used an AI product, have you ever uploaded anything to it? It can be a file, a media, video, audio, whatever. Have you ever uploaded anything? It could be your CV, it could be a contract, it could be a document you wanted to translate to another language, maybe from another language to English. Good. Now, there's a reason why I'm asking all these questions to prepare how I'm moving for the conversation that we are going to have. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so I know we are talking about AI, but I'm not going to turn this into an AI lecture. And so I wouldn't necessarily go deep into conversations or definitions and all of that. But still, I just wanted to touch a bit on some basic concepts to build our foundation. Most of us, our first interaction with AI most likely would be generative AI. But then I would say the media has kind of turned AI into this buzzword. But we actually might have forgotten that before generative AI, we were actually already interacting with AI to an extent. I'm sure many of us might have had this experience where you were probably talking to someone, maybe a video call, or you were doing a Google search about a shoe that you wanted to buy, and suddenly you start seeing ads about shoes in your Gmail, and when you open your Instagram, and shoe ads are just following you everywhere. That's because some elements of AI have been used in that aspect. And so, because you did some research about or discussed about shoes, then the algorithm begins to show you advertisements related to what you did some research about. And also, when maybe you are searching for something, you are shopping online, usually once you are done with your order, it begins to recommend other options and tells you things like, oh, those who bought this item also bought this, or this item will go well with this item, things like that. So that's some ways that we've actually had some kind of interactions with AI. But generative AI, of course, then brought it mainstream to global mainstream kind of. So these days now we can use it to create text, we can use it to create audio, we can use it to create videos, we can use it to create images. And things are even getting much better. Some of us might have also heard about agentic AI. These ones are even kind of much more powerful than generative AI. Now, with agentic AI, you can do things like build a website from A to Z. I actually used it for a particular project I had in mind, and it's literally built a, would I say, a fully functional website with different web pages. I simply just gave it my concept, then gave it certain parameters and instructions, and the whole thing was developed. Yeah, I don't think it took up to 10 minutes. I can't remember exactly because I just left it and then came back. It took very little time and the whole thing was done. So you can use agentic AI to complete several steps of tasks. Most people use it to do things like shop online or, like I've already said, create a website. But at the end of the day, all of these are still early days for AI. Yeah, they're still early days because I'm sure some of us must have seen the old AI video generation where humans had six fingers or one kind of eyes or three hands and all of that. But these days, we've seen updated versions of those models creating literally realistic videos that people now even create advertisements, video advertisements with it. And it's even becoming difficult to know if this AI generated or not. So that simply tells you that the current state of AI capability is like the worst it would ever be. It's simply going to keep getting better and better. And so when people then ask me, so would AI take my job? I know this question is literally like the most asked question related to AI. Would AI take my job? Would AI take my job? I would rather you should consider making yourself future proof, learn how to use AI. Of course, AI can do everything, but still, it could get to a certain stage. I know some people would like to say AI can build houses. But do you realize we do already have 3D printing services today that can build machine and products, physical products? So very soon we would actually get to a stage where houses get built in a day or in days rather than months or years. So we are seeing things at early days and things are just going to keep getting better and better. Now let's move to our topic, protecting your data in an AI world. Please move to the next slide. Thank you. So when we talk about protecting your data in an AI world, there are different layers to this conversation, but let's just narrow things down. I already mentioned that we are looking at the point of view from the users and not organizations or those who develop or provide AI products. And then also, we are also looking at data that you use when interacting with AI. So when we talk about protecting your data in an AI world, what AI data are we talking about? The first would be the training data. This would be the data sets, which could be scrapped information from the internet or wherever. And those data could actually contain personal information about an individual. Then, secondly, we look at input data, and this is actually the main area where most users get to uh, use personal data when interacting with AI. So we have uploads. And I asked us how many of us have uploaded something to AI before. I'm sure many of us uploaded our CV, which has your email, your phone number, even your address, a lot of personal information. Right? And then some of us might have uploaded a contract. We see that a lot in legal consulting, why some will tell us, oh, they asked AI to explain the contract for them or even develop the contract for them. And many of us might have uploaded maybe an official document that is in a different language, but you want to get the information in English. And so some of us might have uploaded that. And that contains a lot of personal information. In fact, even outside personal use, some upload work documents, work files into AI. So when we are thinking about data protection, one of the areas that we're looking at will be the input data, the uploads that we upload, and that also has to do with the prompts too. Because in some of the prompts, you have to give it a lot of information as you are giving it the context and necessary information to be able to give you the proper answer. You end up having to share personal information. Another data to consider would be the output data. And this is where maybe especially generative AI, when it returns your answers or it generates the content you've asked it, sometimes those contents can include personal information. Then also there is metadata. And that's one of the key things I learned when I got into cybersecurity. When you send something like an image, most of us just think, oh, it's just an image, nothing more. But there is actually metadata where you get information like the location where the image was taken, the time where the image was taken. In fact, you could even get some even give you much more information like what I say the geolocation to the precise what word did they use for it, just like the exact location where the picture was taken. That's another information. So it even goes beyond maybe the name that the image was given, but a lot of other underground information that you might not easily see just by looking at the image is contained in metadata. And metadata is usually in all files, not just images, even PDF and all kinds of files. Then lastly, usage patterns. This is especially if especially for those who have the feature turned on in whatever AI, generative AI they're using, where it kind of keeps a record of all their chats and questions. I'm sure some of us might have seen all those popular tweets where they are like, you should ask the AI based on all the conversations you've been having in the past. You should that the AI should maybe like tell you how to improve your life or how to get better. Or I think some even say the AI should roast you or whatever. So those are usage patterns that the AI is going to look at. So if it's roasting and tell you that, oh, it seems like you are a workaholic, blah 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 blah, that's based on the research pattern you have given it. If you've been working all night and all of that. So it's going to explain based on the record of how you've been using that AI. So all this kind of different data ways that one can be interacting with an AI using personal data. Next slide, please. So now we've seen the kind of data that we're talking about or that we need to be thinking about. Now, what are the data protection considerations that we need to think about? Um, First is consent. The issue with AI consent, or what I say when, especially when you sign up and then you give consent based on the data you're giving to it. But most of us have no idea about the wide scope of these consents that we're given. As we're going to see very soon, I'm going to talk about having to read the privacy policies. All the AIs you've been using, how many of us have ever read the privacy policy? Do you know where the data you've been given the AI is being stored? Is it stored in Nigeria? Is it stored in Europe? Is it stored in the US? Is it stored in China? Do you have any idea? But you've already
Yes.
given consent. And most of us will just click yes, 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 till we know we are done with the sign. We don't even care whatever what we are handing over and where what we are handing over is called. Another privacy consideration or data protection consideration is model inversion. This just simply means using prompts or techniques to trick a model into giving out private or personal information. Imagine trying to trick a model to give you maybe the phone number of a popular celebrity or something. So that's what we call model inversion. The number three, right to forget. In fact, this is going to be my PhD research topic because I'm trying to look at machine learning. And what that simply means is once models have been trained, if you remember, I told us one of the AI data we're looking at has to do with training data. So once models have been trained, especially if they have been trained with private data or private information, is it then possible to make that model forget that private data or private information? Usually it means probably having to retrain the model without the data you want it to exclude. Now, trying to do that for models all the time is not feasible at scale. So the idea is to look at solutions to this, and those solutions are usually called machine learning. There are some, there is federated learning, there is even differential privacy, but those are kind of technical, which I apply during model training or development. But it's just something to think about during data protection considerations. Then number four would be data breaches. And that's why I mentioned earlier. Do we even have any idea where the data we are given is being stored? Is it being stored locally or is it being stored on the cloud? So what that means is wherever it is being stored, that means that they could be liable to data breaches because you have no idea who might have access to wherever the storage is kept. Even if it's stored locally as per on your device or on your phone or wherever, there is also the possibility of data breach too. So even if you hand over the whole stress and consideration to cloud storage, there is still consideration of data breaches there too. The number five consideration would be the right to update. For those who might be familiar with data protection laws, one of the data subject rights, just like the right to forget, is also the right to update or modify or edit your information. So if things have changed for you, you generally have the right to update your information, wherever it is. But like I said in right to forget, once the data has already been, and once the model has already been trained, it's always difficult to make changes, whether deleting or updating our content. Then lastly, intellectual property rights. Now this, even though it's just two words, their IP, is actually a whole truckload of issues related to that. Because these days we can use generative AI to create videos in the likeness of someone. And even though it is not that person, we've heard of deepfakes, they're actually getting better with AI now. And I know a particular country, I've forgotten the country right now, is it Denmark, is actually trying to pass a law that gives copyrights to the image likeness of their citizens. So what that means is each citizen of that country would have copyright to their image likeness, and nobody else will be able to create like the fake images of them or generative AI videos of them. Then also on the other side of the IP rights issues, we have copyrights of people's work. I know there has been a lot of issues, especially with, I know when ChatGPT released, is it Jubilee or what was it called, where people can cartoonize their images. There is actually a court suit related to that. There are a lot of IP court suits on AI going on in the US and in Europe and around the world. So all this has to do with the fact that someone owns the data that trained those models. So then there is now different conversations. Who then holds the outputs that comes from those models that have been trained on someone else's intellectual property rights? So the whole battle is still ongoing, but something to think about because there have been instances. You remember the model inversion we talked about, how to trick a model to give you private data or private information. So assuming an employee of a particular company has gone to train or gone to upload private documents or confidential documents or intellectual property protected documents just because they need the help of AI to do their work, and then those information that have been uploaded could get used to train the model. And then when someone else gives the AI model a prompt, those private IP protected documents could then get become outputs for someone else. So you can see the connection where IP issues then comes up. So let's move on to strategies that we can adopt. I know my time is almost fast spent. So there are a lot of protection strategies that can be adopted. But like I said, the point of view is for users, individual users. So the first thing I will talk about will be policies. I think I probably did make a reference to this. How many of us read the privacy policies of these products before we begin using them? Most of us do not. And even at work, your office might have introduced AI use policy. How many of you have read them to be sure you're not going against the policies? Because in most employment, usually what happens is all AI tools are banned from being used, and then they get to use more more kind of private models that have though they are used for commercial license, but they are much more better than free ones like ChatGPT or even open source ones. Those ones have better privacy and security measures embedded in them. So you need to check the policies, your privacy notice, your privacy policy, your AI use policy, and other policies that has to do with your use of AI. You need to read them, you need to follow them. Now, another strategy to adopt would be data minimization. So you should share data selectively. Rather than uploading your whole CV, you might just maybe copy out sections of the CV that you want to work on. So share data selectively. Only send or upload what's necessary. And be careful also not to upload things that are IP protected. Then third, data settings. This is where you need to customize your privacy settings. Please, next slide. I talk a lot more about that here in data settings. It involves a lot of things. Like I said, I know one of the data subject rights um, given to data subjects in most data protection laws is to ensure that the most secure or private settings should be the default. But we know that most of these companies do not follow this. So you have them actually doing things that are much more in their own benefits and
Yeah.
then requiring users to have to opt out. Sorry, I think someone is talking. Can I go ahead?
No, please go ahead.
Okay. As I was saying, the most private and most secure settings should be the default. But most times companies do not implement this. So that means you have to, should I say, take matters into your hands and take your privacy into your hands. So after this call, you should go to wherever AI tools you use, go to the settings and ensure that things are in proper order. If you need to opt out, opt out. If you need to opt in, opt in. If you need to turn it on, turn it on. If you need to turn it off, turn it off. And some data settings that are usually available would be that you can delete your chat histories. You can disable monitoring. This is very important. Most of these AI products, once you feed it in with your prompts and your uploads, they use that to train their models. And that was why I was mentioning earlier that imagine the scenario where an employee takes IP protected information of their company, maybe like their business plan or something, and uploads it to a generative AI, who then uses it to train the model. And then when someone else maybe puts in a prompt relating to that, and they get the information. So you need to go and disable this. And then you also need to check the data storage. Sometimes it could be on cloud, or you might want to make sure it is on your device. So that means it is not going out of your device. Another thing is to look at to review the permissions and access you've given to those AI apps. I remember when I first started using Manus, which is an AI agent. I told it to create Google's a Google Sheet to put the information I asked it in Google Sheet. And suddenly it was asking me for access to my Google account. And then that was confusing. And imagine someone who probably is not well enlightened about these issues might actually give the access without considering whether they should or shouldn't do that. And so most times, some of these apps do have access and permission. You need to check that regularly. And all of these things shouldn't be done once. It's not something you do once and forget and the whole matter ends. No, you need to do it periodically. You need to check that things are as they should be. And lastly, you need to practice good cyber hygiene. I know you've probably heard it a hundred times. Have good passwords. It may look like something basic, but a lot of us, most times, we use password or use weak password. The best way is just to have a password manager where you just need to remember one strong, difficult, complex password. Then you can then store all the other passwords in the password manager. And most browsers have a password manager, so you can leverage them. Next slide. So I believe that I've given you some tips that we can take. I've probably gone beyond my time. I'm sorry. And so just to end the conversation, I would like to ask, what privacy preserving action will you be taking after today's webinar? You can let me know in the chat. I will go to the chat now to see if there are any questions. So, what privacy preserving action will you be taking today after this call? Next slide, please. So, thank you for your time. I hope I've been able to share something useful today. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn with Faith Obafemi. You can send me an email. My email is on the screen if you have maybe any other thing you would like to discuss with me. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you, Miss Faith. Oh, thanks for that. Oh, I can see the emojis. Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Yes, for me, my take home here now is I've never thought about this. Where is the data being stored? You mentioned something like that. Is it stored in Nigeria, Europe, US? Sincerely, I never thought about that. So thank you. It's like an eye opener for me today. Then also reading the policy. Sometimes we just get so in a rush, to make use of the AI tools to get some jobs done or write a document, prepare something that you don't take your time to read the policies. So thank you for throwing more lights on this. And also being selective as to the data we share and customizing the data setting. I make sure I try as much as possible to do that after today's webinar. And I'm sure a lot of us too would start implementing some of the ideas or the some of the things you mentioned earlier that we can do to set our privacy setting for the AI we use. So thank you so much, madam. We really appreciate your time. And we hope to still have you on our future webinars because like you said, data privacy is wide. We can't complete it today. It's not possible. So we still need to go back to learn more and probably call you again for you to educate us more on how to protect our data while using AI. Thank you once again. So I don't think if there's any, let me check the chat box and see if there are comments that we need to, okay. Okay, usually in the setting, just check and find. Okay, you're answering the questions already. Okay, that's good. So let's move on. But Miss Faith, you will still be around just in case there are other questions during the question and answer session, please. Is that fine? Did you get that?
Okay. I'm not sure what AI model is Siri, but I'm going to assume your question is that Siri is always on, and so it's kind of, would I say, always on in the background, and then waiting for any comments or prompts from you. So the best option would be to turn it off and only turn it on when you want to use it. That's just going to be the best solution.
Okay. Are there any other questions in the chat box? Okay, so thank you, Madam, once again. So let's move to our next speaker, Mr. Solomon Ejishake. So I will be reading his profile shortly. Okay. Mr. Solomon Kolawole Ejishake is a distinguished educational leader, co-founder, and director of education at Edway Educational Services. He has a proven track record of driving innovation in curriculum development and technology integration. Through his extensive experience, Solomon has consistently enhanced student learning outcomes by strategically using STEM and robotics. Solomon is a certified AI essential expert. He has also facilitated AI sessions on behalf of the Raspberry Pi Foundation and Google DeepMind in collaboration with Nextday Factory across 5 southwestern states of Nigeria. His work has been instrumental in securing Google for Education licenses for multiple schools and pioneering advanced curricula that significantly boost students' digital literacy and critical thinking skills. A result-driven professional, Solomon has been recognized for his innovative teaching practices and for fostering a culture of collaboration and excellence. He has successfully designed and implemented customized software, organized inter-school competition, and leveraged data-driven feedback to continuously refine educational programs, ensuring they are both relevant and impactful. So let's welcome our next speaker, Mr. Solomon Ejishake. Can I see some emojis to show we are glad to have him on board? So Mr. Solomon, you have the floor. Thank you for coming, for accepting our invitation.
Great afternoon to us all. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you for the warm reception so far. I must say I'm excited to be here. It's a pleasure to be with everyone here today. Again, my name is Solomon Kolawole Jishaki, and I mean the bar already says it all. So I'm just gonna skip all of the pleasantries and we'll just get to what we want to talk about today. Now, for what we want to talk about today, right? Ms. Faith has done an excellent job, right? She's done an excellent job, fantastic job. I followed all through. It was very enlightening, I must say. I hope that as much as joined that session, I hope you also share that same position about that particular presentation. I think the only challenge for me now is to fill up these big shoes that she's left for me to fill up, because I don't know, maybe somehow she was spying at my slide, and I mean she's made allusions to a whole lot of the things that I would have loved to mention to us today. So or maybe there's an AI here that is monitoring my work. So I mean, but again, thank you so much, Ma, for that presentation. I really, really, really did enjoy it. Okay. So having said that, I'll do my best to, in the few minutes that I have, to share as much as possible as I can, based on the topic that that I'll be dealing with today. So if you allow me the next few seconds, I'm going to ask, I mean, the old age question, the cliche question, if you can see my screen. If you can see my screen, just leave me some kind of reaction or comment in the comment section, constantly looking at the comment section. Or, I mean, you can also react using the emojis, the smileys that we have there, and that will be a thumbs up for me, to continue. Also, I would like to confirm that everyone can hear me loud and clear. I mean, if you need me to be more audible, now is the time to do that in the comment section, so I know how best to project my voice. Okay, so yes, someone says loading. Yeah, I believe if you allow a few more seconds, then my screen should be immediately visible on your end.
Oh, okay. I guess it should be the person's network because I can hear you clearly. I can see your screen and I can also hear you clearly.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just go ahead and continue. So we want to talk about, bias and ethics as it has to do with AI or AI tools. And I mean, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of a whole lot of time today talking about the preambles, what AI is. We all know that already, right? For the sake of those who don't know, AI is simply any tool, any system that mimics human intelligence, right? And human intelligence really varies, right? It can be very complex, it can be very simple, but when you have a tool or a system that mimics that kind of intelligence, then what you have in your hands is an AI tool. On that premise, what that suggests is that artificial intelligence is not new, right? Just like Miss Fate already made allusions to, it's not new. It's been there, right from if we zoom back 100 years ago, right from the onset of computers, artificial intelligence has been in the scene. The very first computer, up until what we have now, it's been in the scene. The major difference is the way that AI is made today and the way it is used today. That's one of the major difference. That's what differentiates it and makes it stand out, and maybe I would even dare to say makes it look new, but in essence it's not exactly new. So while those older AI tools were based on a lot of instructions, programming instructions, yes and no, true and false, one and zeros, this modern time, these AI tools are no longer, extensively trained using that method. In today's world, they are now trained using lots of data, right? They feed on data. They use those data that is being given to them. They find patterns, correlations within this data, and then they are able to make a prediction based on what that model perceives as the pattern, right? I should also put out there immediately that these tools, because they make predictions, like I said, it suggests also that a lot of times these predictions may not always be 100% accurate, right? It may not always be 100% accurate. And so you would even have the most common generative AI tool that we have out there, Gemini or ChatGPT. They would normally have a disclaimer, like a watermark underneath their page, their website or their application, where they're advising you to, proofread whatever result, whatever predictions that this tool, makes. Don't just take it hook, line, and sinker, and and then you're not doing any fact checking, as the case may be. Now, it is everything that I've talked about so far that brings to mind the concept of bias and the frameworks the framework that we'll be talking about for today's session as per the ethics of artificial intelligence. Now, what exactly do we mean by bias? I'm going to do well to tailor this presentation to youth, to students, whether it's secondary school, university, and to some extent, I would also tailor this presentation to even educators, right? So when I'm making all of this, when I'm, explaining, I'll be putting it in context as to, which of these categories I'll be referring to. So let's talk about bias. What do we mean when we say bias, particularly when it has to do with AI? Now, the word bias isn't exactly new to, any one of us. And for AI, it's not too different. It just simply refers to when the result of an AI tool or system is tilted, favors a particular narrative much more than the other. When you use these tools, as the consumer, you have to be aware that for every single result that you've ever gotten from any AI tool, whether it's the generative AI, the agentic AI, a lot of times, right, those results always have some, activity of bias sprinkled into it. Is it possible to completely read any AI tool of bias? The answer is emphatically no. It's not, as of today, it's not possible. And that's because bias creeps into, the training of these AI tools in one way, shape, or form, right? And we'll talk about the two very important ways that, bias comes into the scene in a moment. But in simple terms, when we're referring to bias, we're just talking about how that these tools can favor a particular narrative as opposed to another. I'll give you an example. Now, if you do a search on Google before now, well, even if you do it now, you will still notice that it is tilted towards a particular narrative. But they've done a lot of job on the back end to keep correcting this model and feeding more data that sort of is or balances out things. But if you had done this search, say 5 years ago, the pictures that will be suggested to you as the picture of software engineers would have been male-dominated pictures. Did that mean, or does that mean that there were no female software engineers? No, right? It just means that, and I hope that we also know that even the Google search engine itself, right, is built on AI models, right? What that simply means, what that result did show to us then was how that there was bias in the data set that this, AI tool was trained on. Now, it wasn't limited to software engineers only, right? And now, if you're paying attention, you notice that I just picked out the first way that bias can get into, any AI tool that you have used or that you will soon use. And these are some of the things we need to constantly be aware of when we are using any of these AI tools. These are some of the things that we need to talk to for those of us who have kids, teenagers, friends, these are things that you need to constantly engage them on, right? One of them is data bias, right? Data bias simply refers to a situation where the data that these AI tools are being trained on are not accurate enough. Aside from being accurate enough, they are not representative enough. They don't represent the diverse, variety of data sets that exist out there, right? So schools that are beginning to transition to AI, these are some of the things we warn them ahead of. Be careful which AI tool you choose, because there is yet to be yes, there are a few players in the industry. For example, Edverse has its own AI tool. Edverse is an indigenous startup in the educational space. Yes, they have their own AI tool, but the large number of other AI tools that your students are using to answer your question, that you as a university student are using for your research, and all of these things were not originally trained on data sets from Nigeria, right? And so those tools are tilted, their responses are tilted towards favoring, the white narrative. And this is not just limited to education, to the educational space, right? It goes on to some of us who use, AI tools to craft, CVs, to design, posters, videos, and a whole lot of this thing. So that's one of the things you need to be careful of when I'm choosing an AI tool. I need to be aware. Towards the end, we'll talk about some of the things you can do ahead of time to be sure that the AI tool you are choosing is, appropriate for what you want to use it for. But this is number one thing we need to put at the back of our mind, bias. I'll go to the second one because I'm just trying to compress a whole lot of things that we want to talk about quickly. Now, let me pause to say that if you have questions along the line, you can just type it. I'm constantly looking at the comment section. You can just leave it there. If I'm not able to immediately respond to it, of course, after now there's going to be an open floor for questions and answer. I will then definitely, answer those questions that you may have. Okay, so this is one way that bias can creep in when there's inaccurate data, or you have accurate data, but this data does not represent the variety that we have out there. Now, so let's imagine there's an AI application, right, that can predict the job of a person that a person might do, right? But the problem in this case is that you would notice that 5 years ago, as a matter of fact, there are job descriptions today, there are fields that are kids want to venture into today that did not exist 7, 8, maybe even 5, 10 years ago. For example, 10 years ago, if someone said, I want to be a data analyst or a social media, influencer or manager, those things will have looked very weird, right? Because as at that time, these jobs, quotes and unquote, did not exactly exist, at least not the way that we know them today, full-fledged that we know them today. So if you were training 10 years ago, right, or just like the example I have on the screen, right, 1960, right, we're training with data sets from 1960. What kind of recommendation do you think AI would give for these job roles? Now, I'm going to need this particular session to be interactive, so I'll need everyone to hop into the comment section, right? And I'll start from the very first one. Imagine an AI that is making this recommendation, maybe Google, for example. You're searching for recommendation for a professional footballer. The data set is 1960, right? I can, I might as well just give us the first one for free, right? If you were searching or querying for a professional footballer, the response you will have gotten will have been male dominated. So can we move to the second one? For teachers, what do you think the response would have been for teachers, having in mind the data sets that this model have been trained on. So, I mean, you can let me know teacher, and then you can put the gender there. Nurses, you can put the gender there. And then astronauts, you can also put the gender there, right? Now, while you are doing that in the comment section, let me, sort of broaden this knowledge just a little bit more, right? Now, we are using data set from 1960 as an example, but remember that the present tools that you have at your disposal today, they have been trained. In some cases, a whole lot of us that use this, so we don't even know what data set they've been trained on, right? We don't know if they are current data or obsolete data. We don't know, right? So that brings again another worry that you should really be worried about the bias that can arise from some of these tools. But that aside, having this in mind, right? You also want to be careful because you want a future-proof results. Whatever thing you are trying to generate, you want something that is future-proof, right? So when the AI tool is done, making all of the predictions and the result is generated for you, you have to be sure to make sure that in the next 1 year, 2 years, 5 months, 1 week, this information would not, be obsolete and then shoot me, in the leg. Right? Thank you so much. Looking at all of the responses, and I'll pick out the ones that are most, interesting for me, because again of time. But again, teachers would have been female, right? In my opinion, right? Teachers would have been female, and that's backed up again with statistics. I mean, it's only in recent terms that the male, particularly in the elementary school, right? It's only in recent terms that the male counterparts have now begun to take a more active role. But if you had gone to the elementary school, you will probably have found more of female teachers as opposed to the male teachers. Nurses, completely female, right? You will almost not find any result that will give you a male person. And then astronaut. Now, this one I found out quite recently, which is I think is quite interesting. Now, why would the astronauts? A whole lot of us agreed already on male, and actually, truly, it will give you male. But why do you think that is so? Because this is what would lead us to the next kind of bias that can, that can plague any AI tool out there. Why would it be male? Now, it will interest you to know that it wasn't until recent times. Now, when I say recent time, maybe like 20 years ago, I think, maybe even not up to that, or just a little bit above that, compared to, all of the times where human beings have gone to space and back. It was not until that time, before someone, a lady, actually pointed out something, that the reason why, the field was dominated by males was because there were no space suits designed for the female body. All of the spacesuits, Neil Armstrong, every of those spacesuits were designed for the male body. So it was almost impossible for even females to, get into that field, because at the end of the day, that suit wouldn't fit. Right? So it was until she pointed that out before scientists and these designers now had to come to their senses and realize that, oh, and then they decided to start making female versions. So now in this particular case, it wasn't someone who was training a model or who made an AI tool in those days, right? Just like we may have in today's world. It wasn't entirely that the data set wasn't accurate or representative, right? The problem at this point is the society. I'm still going to share another example, right? Is the society, right? So this is the second part. So data bias, data can be a source of bias, can inform the bias in any AI tool. And then there's also what we call the societal bias. Now, societal bias, in a nutshell, is when, the society in question influences a whole lot of the data that we used to train these AI models. Now, I'll give us a very wonderful example that I think is a very wonderful example. Now, if we made a model for the elections, particularly the elections at the Senate level, and we ask this model, or we even ask ChatGPT. I haven't done that, but I think that's an interesting query to give to ChatGPT. That I'm going to ask ChatGPT to predict in the Nigerian context and in the current Nigerian Senate, or maybe in the Nigerian Senate in the past 10, 20 years, right? Which candidate would most likely emerge as the Senate president, right? 9.8 times out of 10, it will most likely be a male candidate. That's if at all it gives you a female candidate. And now, is it that the data is wrong? No, the data is not wrong. But what that data is just showing to us is that all the while, the Senate seat in Nigeria, right, has been dominated by males. So that is the society influencing the results that an AI tool is generating or giving to us. The data is accurate, but the society is influencing the results. And so, let me contrast this with some of us are in the education field. Now, in the white society, a whole lot of the cultural standards, the horns that we hold on in terms of, culture, respect, all of these things, these traditions that still makes us who we are today, they are not necessarily the case for the white community. This is not to stigmatize them. They have their own way of doing things. But I'm saying that when you are using that tool, if you are a teacher amongst us here, or you plan to teach, you are using it to generate a lesson plan, be aware that some of those things may creep into, and so you may have examples of relationship between, at the elementary school, you may have examples of relationship between a male and a female student. Right? In their own context, they don't see that as a big deal. But for us in our own context, we have to raise a lot of alarm. And this is just one example amongst the many that we can begin to go on and on and on and on about. Let me just do a quick check, right? If we are following, just leave a thumbs up. If you think I'm too fast, you want me to slow down, also, please do that now. So that's in a nutshell is, so you can continue to do that. I'm constantly looking at the comment section. So that in a nutshell is the concept behind, societal bias and data bias. Now, a whole lot of times, one can affect the other, right? One can affect the other. So we also have to pay attention to that, right? For example, I have a facial recognition system. In some cases, it could be less, effective when it comes to people of certain, skin tones, right? And why would it do that? That's simply because the data sets that was used to train it were people that were predominantly white-skinned, right? So when it sees a black child or a black person, it doesn't, give you all of the benefit, all of the pros and all of the pros of that particular tool. So I hope I've done in that short time justice to what we refer to as bias. And I've also mentioned two ways that bias can creep into, any AI tool, right? I also mentioned emphatically that it is at the moment impossible to read any AI tool of bias, right? And one of the reasons again for that is because even us as individuals, yourself, myself, we bring a whole lot of bias to the table when it comes to the work space. So even the data analysts, the data scientists, the AI scientists, the machine learning developers, they also bring their own biases to the table, right? And so these are more reasons why it is completely impossible at the moment. Maybe some algorithms will come up in the nearest future, we don't know, that can help us read these tools of biases. Now, you cannot remove them entirely, but what you can do is to reduce it, right? And I've made allusions again to them, right? Use large representative data set. Don't just limit the data set to a particular thing. Right now, in this context, now I'm referring to people amongst us who are also interested in building our own AI models. Right? I hope that we all know that you can build your own, chat GPT, you can build your own model, right? It doesn't have to be text-based. It can be, you can develop a machine learning model that solves a particular problem in your own niche, right? For example, I know that in Kenya, machine learning models are being used to sort of, track the wildlife that they have there, right? These are things that would have been very difficult for humans to do without the power of, AI or AI tools, as the case may be, right? Now, also on that note, whenever you are done building any AI model, and there are tons of materials out there that can teach you how to build your own AI tool, how to train your own machine learning model that can be very helpful. You can build in the workspace. You have the data set of all your employees or co-workers, and there's a particular problem that you want to solve. With AI, you can build a machine learning model for that and begin to solve that problem. I won't go into all of the complexities of that, but I just thought to put that out there for those who are coming from that niche. Right? Okay. All right. So any questions so far? Do we have any questions so far? Questions or observations that we may have? Okay. All right, so in the absence of any, I want us to quickly go into another important concept when it comes to biases and the ethics, right? And this I think is also very important. So I'm just going to talk about this in passing because it is worthwhile that we put this out there now. The earlier for us, the better, right? Because if you pay attention again to what Miss Faith said, that particular tool that allows active training when you interact with these AI tools simply means that when you're interacting and sharing this data with these AI tools, a whole lot of them are also at that point, they are self-training. They are collecting those data and also retraining, right? So maybe in a sense, yourself and myself are also reasons for these biases, right? And that's what I want to talk about now. Now, how can you be a reason for some of this bias when you interact with this AI tool? It's a common error that we all get into, right? And it's the error of anthropomorphism. Now, what is anthropomorphism? In simple terms, so for some of us who are, linguists amongst us, okay, yes, it is possible. For some of us who are the linguists amongst us, you already know that anthropomorphism simply means or to giving or attributing human-like characters or human-like traits to non-living things, objects, right? The most common place you will see anthropomorphism, in play would be the kids' TV show, right? The cartoons, right? Anthropomorphism plays out a whole lot when dealing with that. So that's why you have maybe cars that can talk, for example, that you're seeing as an example, what you're seeing on the screen, and you have characters that have eyes that can do all of these things that should only be attributed to humans, right? That's what anthropomorphism is. And when it comes to the concept of anthropomorphism in the line of AI, what we are simply saying is a lot of times we fall into that trap of attributing human-like traits to these AI tools. And so from the beginning of this session up until now, you would always hear me say AI tools, AI systems, right? As opposed to just saying AI as it were. Excuse me. As opposed to just saying AI. And that's a very deliberate effort, in case you're wondering why. Because at the end of the day, they are tools, right? If we keep prompting these AI tools with certain keywords or in the tone of our prompting, we seem to make it suggest or seem to suggest that it is human, whether you are doing it deliberately or subconsciously. If you suggest at any point that it is human, it would lead to further misconception for the AI tool itself, and also misconception for you and even the next generation that are coming. I hope that wasn't too much to throw out there. Now, again, this is what I mean. A whole lot of us, when using this AI tool, for example, you see people who prompt AI tools and use words like, can you create for me a marketing plan, right? Now, that's a very innocent prompt, right? I mean, you may want to X-ray and say, oh, it's a good prompt and all of that. But the word create there should only be attributed to humans. Humans are the only things that we know in today's world that have the ability to create. At best, AI models or computers can generate, right? They can generate, but maybe not create. And so, if you have been paying attention to the news, you would have heard way back then when, these AI tools, a whole lot of companies started pushing their own product, AI product. Microsoft did. You started hearing this conversation around, oh, there were some AI tools that, started giving responses that, were related to emotions. An AI tool that feels or thinks it is in love with the user. Ms. Fried made allusions again, in some cases, how that you can trick some AI tools, right? So that's what anthropomorphism means in a nutshell. As much as possible, let's avoid in our communication, whether it is your direct interaction with that AI tool or in your communication with another person, always pay attention. Now, the truth is, this is the rule of thumb. No one is perfect. I've heard Elon Musk, who has his own AI tool called Grok, and I've heard the CEO of even ChatGPT make these mistake itself. Sometimes they do when they are on stage talking about their tool, right? So there's no one that is perfect. What we preach today is that everyone should at least be aware, have that inherent awareness in you to be able to catch yourself when you make that mistake and correct yourself. Model for the next generation, people who are listening, your friends, your colleagues at work, model for them the right way so that the ripple effects then translates to, we interacting with these AI tools. And when that AI tool is self-learning, right, or regurgitating that data and using it to train itself, it can now be well informed, and as a case may be. Okay, and I mean, if we're reading on the screen, I'm going to try as much as possible to just put the point on the screen while I explain. I may not read word for word what exactly is on the screen. It's of concern to me if I'm speaking from the educational aspect because of students, right? Particularly teachers who use AI tools in their classes or students who turn back assignments using AI tools. You have to also query them to be sure that they are using it the right way. Now, these are some of the things to avoid, some of the things to take note of, right? Phrases like AI learns, AI does, no. AI application, AI tools are designed to, AI developers build applications that, right? All of these things, they may seem subtle, they may seem little, but they contribute to, shaping, a better AI product and then the future that we want to. We don't want to, because a whole lot of people are beginning to raise alarms. The last hearing, I think in UK, there was a lot of backlash on Facebook's Meta. Backlashes are around teenagers that are now beginning to use not even AI agent at this point, find counseling using an AI tool for counseling, right? Before long, if that continues, if that narrative continues and we don't put a checkmate to anthropomorphism, then people will begin to find solace in AI tools, right? AI tools will begin to work or produce output to mimic what they are not. I hope I was able to do justice to that in a few words that I've used. Again, if you have questions, comments, reflections so far, you can leave them in the comment section. I'll, of course, do well to read them and attend to them. If I cannot attend to them at the end, when we open the floor for questions and answer, I'll definitely do that. All right. Now, everything we've said so far, they all fall under that, topic of conversation when it has to do with bias. Now, let's look at the ethics of, AI. Now, for this particular line of conversation, is someone trying to say something? Is someone trying to ask a question? I can hear that the mic is unmuted, but I'm not sure what's for. So if it's, maybe everyone should please just do a double check on your phone in case that's you that's unmuted, so that you can help us, address that. All right. Now, the more, so AI has come to stay. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think, maybe I shouldn't use it anytime soon. It's not going anywhere forever, right? It's going to become the new norm, just like mobile devices became the new norm, just like internet became the new norm, just like emails became the new norm, as opposed to letters and using the PO boxes, using the post offices and all of those things, right? So AI is going to become, it is becoming, and it will still take more active roles in our lives in various industries, right? So it's very crucial that students, likewise youth, educators, people from diverse, industry begin to understand, what these tools can do, what AI can do for you, and the ethical questions around them. So we want to zero in on, some of the, the ethics of, AI, right? There's a framework that sort of summarizes, this for us. And that framework is actually called, we call it the FAT Ps, right? It's an acronym, right? The FAT Ps. And towards the end, I'll talk about model cards, right? So, but let's start with the framework, the FAT Ps. It's an acronym again, I said, where the F stands for fairness, A, accountability, T, transparency, privacy, and security. Again, the FAT Ps. It's easily remembered that way. Now, what do we mean by each of these acronyms, right? The FAT Ps when it comes to AI tools. Okay, so I'm thinking of how best to approach this, seeing that we have diverse participants here. But okay, maybe let me just go this way. Now, when it comes to the fairness of every AI tool, so you can take this framework, the FAT piece, and apply to every AI tool out there, whether you are the workspace, your company or your workplace is about to consider a new AI tool that they want to use, you can subject it to this framework. Whether you are a freelancer, you're just done with school, preparing for NYC, you're trying to draft some kind of document, you're trying to brainstorm some kind of ideas, you can take that tool that you plan to use and subject it to this framework, the FAT piece. Now, fairness simply refers to how fair that AI tool is. And when we're talking about how fair that AI tool is, we're referring to the bias. Is it free from, bias? To what level is it free from bias? Right? To what level is it free from bias? Right? That's simply what we refer to when we talk about the fairness of an AI application. Now, I can tell you that at the moment, as we speak, as we're having this meeting, this training, there's a whole lot of conversation at the state level, national level, on the at the world level also, around these things that that I've listed and that we've started talking about, the FAT piece. How fair are these AI tools? Should we discontinue an AI tool because it's not fair enough? Should there be a standard of on how fair an AI tool has to be before we, take it mainstream and introduce it to the consumers? Again, how fair is that AI tool? Because bias can mean a lot. Bias can affect, humanity in ways that you cannot even imagine, right? If there is a narrative, if there's a bias in the data or in the society that is, that is against the Black people, right? You can begin to understand these things better now, right? If there's a bias in any AI tool that is against Black people or the Black race, right? I'm saying that because a whole lot of these AI tools are built by the white people or the Chinese people of the white color, right? White skinned people. Right? If there's a narrative that doesn't favor the Black, you can imagine how disadvantaged we already are. It means that the tools that will power industries are not favoring us. So we shouldn't even expect any kind of economical growth in Africa, right? The issue of bias can be that big, and it can be as simple as this when we talk about bias as at the level of when our kids are using AI tools, where we tell them that, oh, AI give you these results, cross check, be sure it is accurate, right? So it can vary on those two extremes. Now, accountability, right? That's for the A, right? This concept, this conversation revolves around who should be, who can be, and who should be held accountable for the result of these AI tools, right? Who should be held accountable? Who can be held accountable? Now, in the event that something goes wrong, right? Who do we hold accountable? Ms. Faith already started laying very exceptional foundations along this line. So if something goes wrong, I want to throw this question out to the house. If something goes wrong with an AI tool, who should be held accountable? Should it be the user, the person who gave it the prompt that led to the negative output or the negative occurrence? Should it be the company that owns the AI products? Should it be the developers that built and trained this model? Who should be held accountable when something goes wrong? Because imagine a child interacting with AI and the AI begins to suggest, just like one of the queries, like I mentioned, that Facebook Meta's AI faced backlash, where there was a particular instance where a teenager was querying the tool on suicide, and the AI's response tilted towards things like, "Oh, are you planning to do this with your friends? Do you want to do like suicide bombing with your friends? Or let's pick a date and a time," which sort of encourage violence. So we don't pray it happens, but if something like that now happens, who should be held accountable? Should it be the child who did not use the tools well? Should it be the makers, the company, or should it be the AI developer? Someone says the developers that train the model. Thank you so much, Mr. Lami Dipupa. I believe that's a name. Does anyone have any divergent opinion on who should be held accountable when something goes wrong? Of course, we can also talk about who should be held accountable when things go right also. And so Ms. Faith already started talking about, who owns, the rights to, these AI products and the things you generate with them. Okay, so another person says the human who's, puts the prompt. Well, so the truth is, as of now, as of today, there is no universally agreed law that binds the end user has a responsibility of use. There's no universally acceptable law that binds who should be held accountable. And as much as that is good, that is also very scary, right? If we think about it in the correct light, right? There's no law. It means you cannot take anyone to court and win as of today, right? If you base your arguments maybe on some other things, I know we have lawyers amongst us, you probably win. But if it has to do with AI, then as at yet, no loss. The best that we have today, for example, in Europe, we have frameworks, guidelines. That's the government telling you that, oh, this tool is out there. These are cautions that you should take. These are things you should take into consideration. But there's no place where it is stated that, okay, if you do this, you get 7 years imprisonment or this is a punishment, right? And so these are things we need to have at the back of our mind. So we are generating things, content, research papers with all of these things. Be aware about accountability, because if tomorrow it is then put up maybe by Nigerian government that, okay, if you have done so and so thing with AI before, you have committed a crime. I mean, so these are some of the things we need to have at the back. Okay, Sam Altman, that's the ChatGPT person. Don't trust them. Well, yes, right. All right. So transparency, which Ms. Faith has done a lot of justice to, simply is talking about the use of the model. So it is the concept of transparency that leads to the model cards that I would conclude this session on. Right. Transparency. How transparent are those tools that you are using? Do you know how transparent they are? What do they do with those data that you give to them? Right? How do they use it? How does it work? Do they tell you the limitations of the model? Do they tell you the pros? Okay, this AI model is good in this situation. It is not good in this other situation. A lot of AI tools that you use don't tell you that. They don't tell you that. A lot of AI tools will not tell you that this tool is not good when it comes to research paper. It is only good for basic creative writing. Not everyone will tell you that. They will just tell you that, oh, we have a tool that can help you generate creative things. Not a whole lot of them will tell you the pros and the cons. And that's what we mean when we talk about transparent. The company, how transparent are they, right? And transparency even goes all the way down to the data set that the AI tool was trained on, right? Have anyone here seen the data set that ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, Claude, have we seen the data set that they were trained on? No. A whole lot of us have heard about video generating generative tools, right? For example, we've heard about maybe Veo or HeyGen that generates video. Have you thought about what data set that was used to train those tools? Were they trained on videos of nudity? Were they trained on? So there's a whole lot of conversation when it comes to transparency. Privacy also of the user's data. Is the user's data protected? I'll share a very live, a real-world example here, where at a particular time we needed to, we needed to get our boss to do a whole lot of videos, but he didn't have the time to do that. Right. So what did we do instead? We decided to, okay, let's just, clone, let's use this AI voice generator and, clone his voice. And then we can just type simple text prompts and it will, convert it into audio form of, our boss's voice. Now, this is where it gets tricky. For that particular tool, it just occurred to us. Actually, that insight didn't even come from myself, but someone just mentioned that how does this tool that we are considering, how did they use our data when we import that voice to the website? How is it going to use that data, that voice? And strangely, we found out that in one of the clauses, it says that in that clause, boldly, that they reserve the right to use the voices, your input, users' input, for their own marketing purposes in any way, shape, or form that they choose to. Right? You may not think that is alarming, but what happens if tomorrow the company owners decide to move from one niche, or maybe they now move to alcohol or violence? It means that the voice of the person doing the advert will be your guy's voice. Imagine if that was the video content. A whole lot of us that use CapCut to do a lot of video things. There are many tools that will say, oh, generate an AI version of yourself, make an AI avatar, all of those things. Imagine if tomorrow that particular company decides to move into another niche. It could be sex, nudity, it could be adult content. And then since they have the right to use your data in any way, shape, or form that they want, now imagine it's your face or your voice or some personal information about you that is being used. Okay, interesting. Now, I didn't even know this, right? But you can begin to imagine, right? And you know, the funny thing is, okay, let me just, so that's just a personal opinion, so I'll just keep that. And then finally, how secure are the systems? Again, Ms. Fee talked about this in very good, I mean, she did justice to this. I don't think I want to add any other thing. Remember that these companies have servers where they save all of this information. How secure are they, right? I don't just want to give my information to ChatGPT if I'm not sure that ChatGPT has some measure of security, because an hacker can, get into, ChatGPT servers and, steal all of my information and use it against me, right? Or use it in a bad way, shape, or form. So I also want to be sure that these systems, these people that are making this tool, are my data, secure. So those are the frameworks. That's the frameworks around ethics of AI. Again, I'm saying that there's a lot of conversation around this, the fat piece. People are every day. There's a whole lot of debate, some for, against all of these things. Right. I'm going to conclude. I'd love to conclude on this note, on the note of the model cards. And for the model cards, just allow me get to that in a second. Forgive me, I'm trying to move on my end. Where is it now? Okay, so for the model cards, what they are simply, so let me just go to the model cards. What they are is, if you have ever had to, take any, for example, any snack, right? Maybe Ribena or, any fizzy drink, any package or processed, food item, particularly, you would notice that on the sachet, on the package, the packets that these things are packaged in, you will notice that they will usually put what we call nutritional, content or values, like a table that tells you, informs you that for this particular food or snack, it has 3 grams of fat. It will give you 3 joules of energy or calories of energy, and so on and so forth. In some cases, they will even tell you that if you are allergic to peanuts or produce from peanuts, don't take this snack or don't take this drink, right? They give you all of those information ahead of time. They describe the product in a way that you can immediately look at it and make a decision whether or not you want that product. Now, that example that I gave is no different from what a model card is, right? And this is what, Google, alongside a whole lot of, front, stakeholders and, the main stage players are beginning to advocate. And what would that model card do? That model card will simply describe what that AI model can be used for. It will describe what it is good at, what it is not good at, what it can do for you, what it cannot do for you. To a large extent, it will even describe, right? It will describe for us, excuse me. It will describe for us the data sets that that particular AI tool has been trained on. I think, okay, just I want to represent my screen. I think my screen went out for a bit there. Forgive me. Oh, goodness. Okay, so in order not to take much of our time, I'll just continue while I'm trying to, put this, the screen back up. So again, it gives us that, information as to what to expect from that particular AI tool. That's what a model card is. There are some tools that you're already using today that already have model cards. Whether or not you want to be a consumer of the AI tool or you want to use the AI tool to create things, you can immediately look at the model cards um, as a form of, guide for you just before you even delve into it. Yes, forgive me. That's my screen too, connected on another screen. So I'm trying to get back to, okay, so I think in a matter of seconds now, it should be up. So yes, let's present this again. Okay, so I think if I'm not wrong, my screen should already be visible.
Yes, it's reversible. But you have just 5 minutes left, please, so I can try and
Describes
round up.
again, it describes for us, it gives us an approach of, describing a machine learning, model, right? People who want to use models, use a model should be given information to help them evaluate how effective, it will be, right? Just before they even bother, to delve into it, right? I'm going to close with this analogy. This is the final thing we're doing today. I just want to give a real context to this. Now, let's imagine for a second that um, let's use this case scenario. So, a music venue um, um, that hosts, concerts, they want to create an application that will help them, manage the crowd, right? So there's a music concert coming up. They want to manage the crowd, and so they are looking for the best way to do that. And so, because they want to monitor things like overcrowding, they don't want people to be excessively crowded at a particular, area. They want to manage the workflow and all of that. And so they are considering using, AI to solve this problem, just like a whole lot of us would, after this meeting, be using AI to solve a whole lot of issues that we will be having, right? So one thing that we can do with the knowledge that we've received so far is whatever tool that you've been asked to use or you are brainstorming to use, find out whether or not there is a model card available for that particular tool. So this is the example of the model card that was generated or that was given for this particular, music scenario. So I'm going to share this, put this on the other screen for us now to see. Okay. So I believe everyone can see. Now, if you look at, this particular model card, right? This particular model card, you will notice that it already gives a description on the limitations of, it talks about the limitation, it talks about what this model card can do, a whole lot of things, right? So a user can first go through this information before deciding whether or not they want to use this particular AI tool or decide to want to choose another. Right? Because of time, I will have just, scrolled, I will have just gone a little bit downward so we can see now in some of the limitation that was shown for this particular AI tool that is being considered. it tells us that this AI tool cannot recognize large crowds. If it's too dark, it cannot recognize, it won't be able to recognize pick out faces or pick out where will be overcrowded and things like that. And if when you are done going through it, you will realize that even though this tool is powerful, it is not ideal for the problem we want to solve in the particular case scenario, in the particular example. Because if it's a concert will usually happen in the night, right? Concerts will usually happen with people moving a whole lot. They are probably dancing. They won't be stagnant. And that's one of the limitations, again, that is mentioned in this particular model card for this tool, right? It's saying that if the person is not if the person's face is not upright, it won't be able to recognize whether it's a person or an object, right? So there were many downsides that if you contrast that downside with what we are trying to achieve for this example, you notice that this AI tool could be good for other problems, but not for the problem that we have at hand, right? Maybe if it was an election or a voters, scenario for voting, maybe this would be good, because you can be sure that if it's going to be voting will not happen in the night, so there's enough lighting. The faces of the people will be lifted. When it's voting, when you want to scan or you want to do what's the name, you will usually have to stand upright and straight. There won't be a lot of movement, data capturing and all of that. So this model, this AI tool will be good in that scenario, but not in this scenario. So in essence, what I'm saying in essence is when you're using that AI tool, be sure to also look up the model cards and be sure which tool you want to use for the particular situation that you have at hand. Let me bring everything together as we come to the end of this session. We've talked a whole lot about, we started talking about what AI is, a sort of refresher. We mentioned that it's not new, right? It's been there. The only difference is the way we are using it now and the way it is being made now. That's the major difference. That's how it differs from what we had, 20, 50 years ago. As a matter of fact, we used to call those older AI tools, model, we used to call them GOFI, right? Good old-fashioned AI, right? It's a term we used to describe them, right? It's a real term that we used to describe them, right? And then we talked about how important, because of the way these AI tools are being trained today, right? There's a whole lot of bias that will be introduced at some point. It could be bias in terms of the data. It could be bias in the society. And a whole lot of times, societal bias would always be reflected in the data sets, right? Societal bias would always be reflected in the data sets, right? So we need to be aware, we need to be careful when using some of these AI tools, knowing fully well that at some point in time, these biases could have been introduced. Those are the two kinds of biases that we limited our conversation on for today, right? And then we immediately, on that note, started talking about, anthropomorphism, right? If we're talking about bias, then at some point, even we ourselves, the users of this AI tool, we introduce this bias. We can be agents of bias, knowingly or unknowingly. It could be subconsciously in the way we interact with these tools. Either it's your choice of words, the way and the tonation that you use while interacting with these tools, your communication with people talking about these tools, right? Because when you interact with people and you talk to them about AI and what you are using AI tools for, right, that, in its own right can shaping someone's knowledge about AI and inform how they too will use, AI tools, right? And so there's this general sensitization we are giving to the public, right? Avoid anthropomorphism. Don't attribute human characters or human traits to AI tools, right? If I ask us to describe how Gemini works, some of us will say, oh, the way Gemini works is I can give Gemini my question. Gemini would then, or ChatGPT would then think about my question, and it will create a response for me that matches the question. Now, while that seems as a very accurate, description of how Gemini works, in my conversation there, I've made a lot of errors. I've made a lot of errors when it comes to anthropomorphism, right? As opposed to that, I would rather take this approach. So if I'm asked how ChatGPT works as an example, I'll tell you, so ChatGPT works on a very simple principle. You prompt ChatGPT by imputing several text, any text that you want, right? So using the right terminologies, right? You impute text, um, ChatGPT then finds patterns in those texts. It does not recognize. It finds patterns, correlations in those texts based on the data set that it has been trained on, and it can then uh, um, uh, uh, generate for us good outputs, right? That would be a better way to shape it. Again, I remember I said the holy grail. No one is perfect at it yet. Just make sure that you are every time you are catching yourself, making those corrections, modeling what is right, and then we wrapped it all up talking about fat peas and the model cards. Fat peas is an extensive framework that is at the moment still shaping how we are using AI. So it's important that we are aware so that we don't fall on the other end when a whole lot of these, conversations are concluded on. Presently, there's a lot of conclusion has not been made yet when it comes to issues around the fat piece. So we need to be more careful. And then the model card gives you sort of like a description of what you're about to get yourself into, the data sets that these tools have been trained on, and so on and so forth. And it helps you make it well informed, decision. Again, my name is Solomon Kolawole Ijishakin. That's my handle on all major um, social media platforms, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Twitter. You'll find me as Ijishakin Kolawole Solomon, or Ijishakin or Solomon or Kolawole. I mean, it's out there um, everywhere. I want to thank everyone for your time. I'm extremely privileged to be hosting this session. Thank you for the 1 hour that you have given. I don't take it for granted. And I hope that, this little time has been, worth your while. I'm going to hand over to the coordinator while I just, stay on standby if there are any questions. Thank you again.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Solomon Ijishaki, and thank you, everyone. Please, can we keep that emojis coming to show how much we appreciate Mr. Ijishaki? Please, let's keep that emojis coming. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. So, do we have any question, comments, please? We have just few minutes. We don't want to take much of your time. We intend to close by 4 o'clock. The webinar is between 2 to 4 p.m. And we have just few minutes to 4. So, anyone have a question, please, you can indicate by raising your hands using the reaction to raise your hand. And just in case you want to drop your question in the chat box, I'm checking the chat box if you have any question. So let's just, and please, I dropped a form on the chat box. Can we please fill the form? It's a feedback form because we intend to have this webinar once a month, but now we'll be having it bi-monthly, meaning that our next webinar will be coming up the month of November. And for us to serve you better, for us to, improve on our future webinars on the session, the topics we have to come up with, the area of AI we want us to focus on. So that's why we need you to fill out the form. It's a feedback form. It's not going to take much of your time. Just few minutes to get your feedback for subsequent webinars. So thank you, Mr. Olatsomiwa Martins. I see a reaction in the chat box. Thank you so much. So do we have anyone that has a question before we round up? Any question for Mr. Ejishaki or any question during the first presentation by Miss Faith? Okay, well spoken, sir. Deep insight and very high hoping. God bless you, sir. That's one of the comments from the chat box. So thank you so much. We really appreciate Mr. Gishakin. So if we have no question or comment, then we'll wrap it up here. So want to use this medium to appreciate everyone for your time. Really appreciate you spending your 2 hours with us for you to join this webinar. Despite you have your other places that you needed to be, but you were here with us from the beginning to the end. We really appreciate it. And we can say that it has been an incredibly insightful and thought-provoking discussion. For me, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot on the use of AI. Like now, for us to use it, we don't make the AI to think like an human, depending on the prompt. And when he mentioned using create and generate, I noticed I use some of the AI tools and I use most times to generate, not to create. So let me say at least I'm doing fine on that area. I use the term generate, not create. So not making the AI system that I'm using to think like humans because they are not humans, they cannot think like us. It is what we impute in them that they will give back to us. So thank you so much for that part. So on behalf of the entire Oye Ibidapo Foundation, I want to extend our sincere gratitude to our phenomenal speaker, Ms. Faith Obafemi. She has really opened our eye on areas where we can protect our data while using the AI tools. Then Mr. Solomon also has talked so much about the ethical side of AI, how we can protect ourselves, and how we can also make sure that we use the AI tools right. We use the word AI tools, using the word AI tools right. So thank you for making this complex topic so accessible and engaging. I can see lots of messages in the message box to also um, appreciating Mr. Solomon for that impactful session. So to all our participants, we want to also say thank you for your active engagement and for your commitment to staying with us till the end of the session. So we sincerely hope you will leave the webinar not only with this new knowledge, but also with a heightened sense of responsibility and critical thinking towards AI's integration into your everyday life. Because Mr. Solomon said AI is here to stay. We'll continue to use it. So it now depends on how we all use it. Now that we've learned how to protect our data and the ethical side, we hope we'll be able to implement all this in our use of AI tools henceforth. So thank you all. We'll be having our subsequent webinar in the month of November, and we look forward to seeing you month of November. So thank you once again, and do have a wonderful rest of your day. Really appreciate you all, and thank you for staying till the end of this session. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much.